Well, hello there. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm making one of my all-time favorite Thanksgiving desserts, and that is a pumpkin praline cheesecake. It is the most delicious, decadent cheesecake that you will ever eat, and it's perfect for the holidays, not only because it is delicious and it makes a beautiful presentation, but it is also super simple to make. I can do this in 10 minutes. Now that's if I don't talk, but it is so easy to put together, you won't believe it. And if you are a first-time cheesecake maker, this is the perfect recipe for you to start on. Sometimes cheesecakes can be a little temperamental and complicated because of the water bath or separating the eggs and adding the eggs and then the flour, then the sugar and all of that. With this recipe, there's no water bath. You just need the springform pan, and it's basically make your crust, make your filling, and then an easy pecan praline topping to go over it. Oh, I can't wait to get to that part. One thing that you do need is a springform pan. If you don't have one, get it. It's a great investment. They're usually always less than $10, and it lasts for years and years to come. Now, the springform pan comes in two pieces, the bottom and then the top. And when you remove your cheesecake stays on this, and then this slides off. It makes it so easy. And this one is nonstick. You can't be too safe with a cheesecake. I definitely strongly suggest you get a nonstick pan. And to ensure that this crust is going to be nonstick, I am spraying it with a little bit of my nonstick butter spray. This crust is my favorite graham cracker crust. It is so good that I can eat it all by itself. It's kind of like a graham cracker candy bar. Yes, it's that good. And I start out with 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs. Now, you could go to the trouble of getting out your food processor and grinding up the crumbs and all of that, but I paid about $2.50 for this box of crumbs. It makes 2 of these recipes, and to me, if I did have to spend a few cents more, it is well worth it not to drag that food processor out, clean up my mess, and then put it back up. Nope. Definitely worth the money here. Now I'm mixing this up right in the pan. Just got my crumbs there, and I've got 1/2 cup of brown sugar and 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar and a good pinch of salt. And I'm just going to mix that together. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to mix it all together in this. And then I'm going to put that right over the top. Now, this cheesecake is topped with a pecan praline cream sauce that's out of this world. And I'm also adding some pecans to my crust. Now, I've got some chopped pecans here, but I want them very finely ground. So I'm just going to take my rolling pin, take out a few frustrations here. Not that there are any during the holidays. Haha. Oh, it really is a great time of the year, but it's also a busy time of the year, and that's why I love recipes like this. Now, one of the reasons I like these finely ground is because when I slice the cake, it's easier to slice, and it doesn't come off in jagged edges. This is 1/2 cup. Just gonna put those right over the top. And then I have 1 stick of salted melted butter. Actually, it's a little bit less than a stick because it boiled over in the microwave, but it'll be okay. I know that probably doesn't happen to you, but it happens to me. All right, this is it. Now you're going to take this and just stir it up and make sure that all of those crumbs are nice and moist. Get all of your lumps out. And this is basically it. The first time I ever made this cheesecake was for a good friend of mine. Her name is Angel. I used to work with her back in the day when I cooked professionally. She was my boss. We had so much fun together. We would go and cater in people's homes and go do parties, and we came up with some fantastic recipes. And one night I invited her over for dinner, and I made this pumpkin cheesecake for her. It was the first time, probably about 12 or 13 years ago. You know, every time I talk to Angel, she mentions this cheesecake. She absolutely loves it. So, Angel girl, this one's for you. All right, these are nice and moist. I can just tell that all of the ingredients are blended. Oh, sorry about that noise. Now, I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to even this out. This is the fun part. And you can do this ahead if you'd like. You know, this recipe is really a great make-ahead recipe. Perfect to freeze or put in the refrigerator a few days ahead of time, take it out the day of, and you're done. Now take both of your hands and begin to press on the sides and turn. Just press, press, press until you go all the way around. And then take your hands and spread it out. Make sure all of the holes are evenly covered and you don't see any of the bottom of the pan. And then begin to press down and get it nice and firm. And when we put our filling in this and we bake it, this is going to set beautifully. Okay, now I'm going to go around one more time just to make sure it's all pressed in. And then I'm going to take my finger and I'm just going to go around the edge to even it out a little bit. I really like to have a rustic look on this cheesecake, but just to ensure that it's all even, I like to run my finger around the edge. And that way, the sides of the crust come up around the cheesecake and give it a big hug, but you see the top peeking out. It's just beautiful. I can't wait for you to see the end result. Okay, now all of my leftover crumbs are not going to go to waste. Just going to put them right in there. And now I'm going to go wash my hands and we'll get started on the cheesecake filling. Now it's time for the fun part. I'm adding 3 blocks of cream cheese. Now I've let my cream cheese come up to room temperature as well as my eggs. It makes it so much easier to whip. And we want this cheesecake to be a really light and creamy texture. I've got my paddle attachment here. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Bring that up. I'm going to mix this until it's smooth and creamy, and it almost looks like the whipped cream cheese that you buy. Start it out on low and then boost up that speed until it mixes. This is looking good. I want to scrape my sides, and I also am scraping the bottom because it's really easy for this to stick. And I want to make sure that everything gets blended perfectly. This is the most complicated part of this recipe, if that tells you anything. I love it, and it makes me look like a rock star. Here we go, one more time. Perfect. That's nice and blended. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add my eggs. These are at room temperature. Makes everything work together a little bit easier. When you have cold eggs and you're adding it to the cream cheese, your cream cheese is gonna seize back up and you're gonna get lumps in your cheesecake. We want to avoid that. So, 3, there we go. And I'm adding the sweetened condensed milk to this. This makes everything delicious. One time I had sweetened condensed milk ice cream. So delicious. I don't think there's anything that you can add this to that wouldn't turn out delicious. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and mix up and start it out again on a low speed and then work my way up until it's whipped and blended. That looks so good. It's just a creamy, lemony color. Now we're going to start adding the flavor to this cheesecake. One of the other ingredients that sweetens this cheesecake is maple syrup. Now I'm using a good maple syrup because I really want that maple flavor to come through. If you buy some of the cheaper syrups, you're going to get maple flavoring, but it's not really maple. This bottle costs about $6 and it's well worth it. My husband loves this syrup, and since I've been getting this, I don't think that he could ever go back to some of the really inexpensive brands. You know what I'm talking about. Also, I'm using some pumpkin pie spice. Now, if you don't have this, don't feel like you need to run out and buy it. I have it, so I'm using it, but you can use an apple pie spice mix. You can use a half of a teaspoon of cinnamon and a half of a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. That's just fine. But I'm using a teaspoon of this. I'm gonna go ahead and add that. And then I'm adding my pumpkin. Now this is 100% pure pumpkin. Don't get pumpkin pie mix. That's completely different. This is like a pumpkin puree. It's not sweetened. There's no spices or anything that's added to it. It's just 100% pumpkin, and that makes a huge difference. If you add a pumpkin pie mix, it's going to be way too sweet. All right. Let's put that right in there. I'm going to go ahead and blend this up, and you know what? We're just about done. I wish that you could smell this. It's amazing. I know it sounds a little cheesy to say, oh, I wish there was smell-o-vision, but in moments like this, it's exactly what I wish we had. If there's not anything that says Thanksgiving in your house, this makes the whole house smell like Thanksgiving. Look at this beautiful, creamy, orangey color. And as it bakes, it's going to get a more deeper orange color and look a lot like a pumpkin pie. You know what? I think I'll scrape the sides of that later all by myself. You get my drift. Now I'm gonna take my pan and just lightly tap it on the counter, and that way I'm gonna get rid of any air bubbles that might be in there. All right, this is perfect. Now, I've got a little cookie sheet here. It's like a pizza pan, but it's got a handle on it. And this springform pan fits inside this perfectly. So this is what I like to use. I would strongly suggest that you put the cheesecake on some type of cookie sheet. Just make sure that it's a good, solid, thick cookie sheet because you don't want it to be unlevel. Now, this is to ensure that if there are any leaks, and sometimes there can be, that I don't have a mess in the oven to clean up afterward. I'm gonna cook this at 325 for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I've got my oven preheated now at 350. And once I put my cheesecake in, I'm immediately going to turn it down to 325 because when I open the oven door, I'm gonna lose some heat. So I want to make sure that it's nice and hot. And one of the ways that you know that this is finished is the edges will be puffed up and then your center will be set. It'll still jiggle just a little bit, but not much. All right, let's get this in the oven and then we'll talk about that delicious pecan praline sauce. Now let's talk about this delicious praline sauce. It's 2 ingredients, starting out with about 1.5 cups of heavy cream to 1/3 cup of this delicious maple syrup. This is gonna thicken up and make the most delicious sauce. This maple cream sauce is going to be so good. We're almost done. I'm gonna get this into a heavy saucepan, cook it, let it cool, and then we'll assemble that cheesecake. I've got my heat on a medium high, and I'm bringing this up to a very slow boil, and it's just about there. Now I'm going to turn my heat down to low, and I'm going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes. It'll thicken up as it cooks, but it's really going to get thick when I start cooling the sauce. It's going to get the consistency of a sweetened condensed milk, but even better. Look at how this is starting to thicken. It's been about 10 minutes, and I'm going to give it about 5 minutes more. Check on it. The cheesecake's almost done. See how it's getting that beautiful orange color and it's starting to puff around the sides? I'm just gonna wait till it puffs just a tiny bit in the middle and then we're done. My cheesecake is finished cooking and I want you to see how the sides have puffed up, but there's a small well in the middle. This looks perfect. Now for the fun part. It's time to take this cheesecake out of the pan. Now, I have been letting this cheesecake sit on the counter for several hours. I took it out of the oven and look how beautiful it is. It's the perfect color. Sometimes your cheesecake might crack on the top. Don't worry about it if it does, because we're gonna cover this with this delicious sauce. So any imperfections that might be on the top are going to get covered up. That's another reason I love this cheesecake. Now I've got my cake pan here, and I'm gonna sit this right on top and watch this. Ah! Come on now. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful? Now at this point, this is perfect to go ahead and freeze it. If you're doing it ahead of time, wrap this up. Make sure it's cooled completely, because when you wrap it, you don't want any condensation to rise and get on the top of your cheesecake. If it does, take a paper towel and just dab it on the top and you'll be fine. But I don't know if we can wait till Thanksgiving to get into this. All right, now, last but not least, we've got the sauce. Look at how this has thickened. See how it has that nice praline color? And I've got a cup of chopped pecans, and I toasted these in the microwave for 2 minutes at 50% power and just added a little bit more flavor to them. You can use raw nuts, but I like to toast the nuts because it gives them just a little bit more flavor. And pour that right in. And let's stir this up. Wouldn't this be great over some ice cream? We might have to save a little of this for later. That looks so good. All right, now we're gonna pour it over the cheesecake. Look at this. Oh, it's so decadent. If you make this for your family, next year at Thanksgiving, this will be the first thing that they look for on your table. If you serve it once, I can guarantee that they are going to want it again. And you know what? This is a great cheesecake. It doesn't just have to be for Thanksgiving. This is wonderful any time of the year. Now I'm going to push this just gently to the sides and let it roll down. Look at this. This looks fantastic. And you know what else? This is a great thing to take with you. If you're going to someone's house for Thanksgiving and you're going to bring a dessert, this travels so well. Just pack it up and put the sauce on at the end, and you will have the best dessert in the house. Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you'll try this recipe and wow your family and friends. And I also hope that you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, no matter where you're at or who you're with. Tell somebody today how thankful you are that they're in your lives. I know I'm thankful for you. Have a great day.